You are now listening to the Molten Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, no matter what time you're listening to us. Welcome to the Molten Fantasy Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Kennedy, and coach of the delicious raviolis for AFL Supercoach. And I'm here with two good mates, two AFL experts, two Supercoach absolute legends. If that's not enough of a rev up, boys, you better step up to it. Mickey Dell, how are we today?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Mixed Pigs coach is Ray here representing. Welcome aboard. How are we?
Wow, mate. Justin, how are you going to follow that?
I don't know.
Good afternoon, Herbie. How are we?
I've just got to plug in that I'm going to get Peter Bell's nephew, so that's a big one for me. The coach of
boys, you're coming through
disciples. So I've officially named my team. So I'm very excited about that. So let's see where this goes. Hey, fellas.
The kangaroo fan himself is already taking Clarko from the Hawthorn man. And look at him. If anyone's watching this on YouTube, welcome to watching the visual medium of that biggest smile that I've ever seen on his face of taking the absolute messiah from us Hawks. But that's okay. We're in a good place, and I'm happy that he's getting a gig and he's going to pass on his wisdom to a team that definitely needs it. Anyways, I won't even let him respond to that. We'll move on. I would love to encourage everybody to make sure if they're following along all our social media platforms, we're on all podcast areas as well. Follow us at Molten Fantasy Sports. And you can also jump on and play against us in a league if you'd like. I think there's no better way for those out there listening along to jump on and show us your skills by jumping in our Supercoach League. I'll give you the code. It is 237. 113. It is the Molten Fantasy Pod. I'll say it one more time. 237 113. Jump in. There's no better way to have a bit of banter. And to everybody who is responding to us, who's been following along in our episodes, who's chatting to us on Twitter and on Instagram, thank you. This is what makes it fun. We actually have just jumped on and done this as a bit of a hobby, but to see that people are getting involved and jumping on and asking us some questions, and some of us have been even changing our mind on what we should be doing with our team. So we thank you and we encourage all the banter to come our way. So let's jump in, boys. Anyone who's been listening along, we've been going through the lines. We've done our backs. We've done our mids. And we are now on to the big boys, the big men who are going to tap it down, take those contested marks out on the wings from the kickouts. And some of them may even push forward and kick some goals as well. So we're going to go through our same format. We're going to talk about our primos and play the game price tag. We're going to pass it over to Mickey Dell, the stat man, who's going to give us everything he knows about the mid-price maniacs, and then we'll start to talk about some rookie or rookie price players as well for a bit of point of difference to see where we're at. Let's dive in, and we play our game called Price Tag. That's right. Anyone who hasn't listened along, Price Tag, this is how it's going to work. We're going to start with the primo players, starting with the most expensive. I'm going to ask my fantastic co-host if they think that price is overs, unders, or spot on. We're going to start right at the top with the man himself, who's always been a bit of a fantasy pick for everybody. He is only in 3% of teams this year, and I think we all know why, and I'll let you guys discuss it more. But Maxi Gawn, the skipper of the Melbourne Demons, at 622,000 with an average last year of 113. I'll start to the man to the right of my screen. Mickey Dell, overs, unders, or spot on?
Yeah, I reckon he's spot on, guys. For someone that was worth 700K to start last year, he has come back almost 100K, but when we're looking at the introduction of Grundy, and for all of you that have played Supercoach in the past, your Grundy, whatever you want to call it, combination has been a set and forget for years. They're on the same team now. So we're talking about consistency here. When Gawn has a bad day, they've got Grundy to fall back on. What my concern is, what's going to happen when Gawn goes out of the ruck? Does he go forward? We've seen him play well forward. And on the other side of that, we'll get to Grundy. What does he do when he's not in the ruck? So I can see why it's at 3%. With Gawn getting a bit older, with Grundy being there, I think the workload's going to be shared a lot. But when he does play, expect big numbers.
I've got him overpriced, like the majority of people in this land. I think the reason for that is that I think that Melbourne are going to find another way to play this year, and I think that they need goals. So I looked it up last year. The D's were ranked 7 in goals at 300. So 59 goals behind the leaders, Geelong. So Geelong have that, like, those two big guys up forward, Cameron and Hawkins, who can plug marks, who can crash contests, and then they got their little rovers under them, which Melbourne do have as well. So I think the person who comes out of this team will probably be Ben Brown, right? Because he's too one-dimensional. As a North fan, I know him too well. He just needs it on a platter. Whereas Max Gawn can crash packs, you can get Pickett, Fritsch, etc., just to rove at the bottom of his feet. So I see Gawn going forward majority of the time, and yeah, I've got Grundy in my team, so that's pretty self-explanatory.
There you go. I mean, look, you can call me Roger Federer, you can call me Switzerland, whatever you want. I'm going to sit on the fence here a little bit with both of your answers. I like them both. I mean, I think Mickey Dell, you're right in what you're saying in his price. It is probably spot on. I'm just way too concerned on what he's going to do this year and what that lineup's going to look like to go after the most expensive ruckman. Yeah, I'm very intrigued to see how this is going to work. I'm really concerned for Melbourne. I think they've got a premiership quality side that should step back up and be in that position. So, dare I say, and everyone's giving me a bit of house for making this phrase too much, watch this space, but he's a quality footballer, and if one of them goes down, I reckon it will be the biggest quick ins in the history of Supercoach. So if one goes down, everyone will be jumping on whoever's still remaining.
What I do want to add, guys, is when Gawn was the number one sole ruckman, he was averaging 127, 128. He averaged 139 one year. Since Jackson came into the fold and they started to sort of use him through the ruck, the last 2 years, he's averaged 120 and last year 113. So those numbers are coming back to the pack a little bit.
Great point. All right, we move on. Jared Witts is our number 2, Gold Coast sole ruckman and captain. He is one of 7. So there's 7 rucks that are over or in double digits for owned percentage. He's one of them, just currently at 11% and at 109.9 average. I'll start with you, Herbie. Is he overs, unders, or spot on?
I think he's pretty spot on at the moment. I think he's due for a big year. The only concern that I would have is just at that price point, I'd probably look towards the next player that we're going to talk about, just for upside. But Jared Witts is spot on. You can't go wrong with him. Very consistent.
Yeah, he had a big year last year, didn't he? He started at about 330, 340K off the top of my head, and now he's at 605. So he's had that breakout year, averaged 110 throughout the year. My main concern is going forward. You know, you've got Mabir Chol in that side. You do have some really good mids in Took Miller, Matty Roll, Noah Anderson, who will come up in a later pod, who I really like. Bit of a high risk as to when he's out of the ruck, but he is probably one of the top 2 tap ruckmen in the comp. So if you're to pick him, you'd have no concern with him. He'll get you your points, but I think there's better value elsewhere.
Interesting. The only reason he's not in my side at the moment is my own bank account. He just slightly tips me over the scale of what I'm spending. Everyone who's never played Supercoach before, you get a salary cap. Everyone's got to have a certain amount that they're allowed to spend. So he takes me over. I would actually be taking him over who is sitting in my R1 position at the moment. Let's not forget with that stat, with him starting at 380 the year before, was he played 3 games that year before that. So he was injured, and he is probably that, one risk of being an injury away again. But for me, if anyone's got the cash, I actually rate him as what would be my R1 based on what I think he's going to perform and being a clear number 1 ruck for that team as well, which is a big factor for me when I'm picking my team. We move on, and I think this is who Justin was referring to, and so is 29% of super coaches out there. Tim English, number 3 from the Western Bulldogs, had a bit of a huge breakout year last year. Everybody knew he's been sitting in that R1 position for a while for the Western Bulldogs, and he sort of came to the forefront, especially at the start of the season, before he went down with a bit of injury. But he's sitting at 581,000, and he averaged 105.5 last year. Mickey Dell, price tag, what do you reckon?
I think he's unders. I think he's going to go extremely large this year. 25 years of age. for those of you that have played Supercoach before, he did score a 200, or he went over 200. I think it was 204 in 2021. So he has the ability to go really large. Last year, he started to add that forward craft into his game, pushing forward, being able to kick goals. I think with Rory Lobb there, I think he's taken the next step. I think he's going to be one of the premier ruckmen of the comp. And I haven't got him in my team now, but I reckon I'll find space for him.
Yep, you boys know how I feel about Tim English. I think
is it the same as
going
Jason Horne-Francis, or?
Oh, I don't know if I can do this podcast. Jesus, he's he who must not be named. You said his name. It's rattled me a little bit. Jesus.
Herbie was an in and out and in today, and now he's considering just exiting out with internet problems at the moment. But yeah, all right.
Look, I think Tim English, he was, for me last year, he was that vice captain every week that was really, really consistent, and I think was the one who I felt safest that he could actually go large every week. Mick, you said that he got a score of 204. He got multiple scores of over, I think, 150 last year as well. He just exploded. And I think the Doggies had a bit of an off year if they can go up a little bit as well. But he's just one for me that I think is just so consistent going into his prime. He could easily get up to that, dare I say it, 700s.
Well, his average climbed 17 points per game last year alone.
No, I think he's definitely shown what he can do. I think everyone who's been watching along pre-season at the moment or they're in their off-season training, he has gone down with a couple of niggles at training, though. So I think that's where some people have kind of got a little bit nervous. He's been on and off the track a little bit in this off-season. So I think a lot of people will be watching the medical report with him. They do have enough backups. They're not going to risk him. They do have the young Darcy there. They've got Rory Lobb. They've got others that can go into that position. We've talked about the plethora of choices of their forwards now, with even the fact Josh Bruce might go down to the back line with a few things. So, yeah, I definitely think he's got the potential to be the best ruck in the comp this year for Supercoach numbers. So he is sitting in my side. But as I said, I probably would have taken Witts just with the guarantee that he is their sole ruckman and the ruck percentage that he's going to get there. But no, I think everything that you said is correct. Fremantle. Now, we talked about Luke Jackson and his antics at Melbourne, and now he has joined the boys in purple over here in the mighty West. This guy has been, Sean Darcy, I think, has been a phenomenal rise over the years and someone that gives you solid numbers. I think there's the fear for the Luke Jackson factor here with his percentage of only being at 5%, with someone who averaged 102.1 last year and sitting at 562,000. Herbie, what's your thoughts on his price tag?
I think he's overpriced. I'm just too scared with the Jackson factor. I'm hearing that there's going to be a 60-40 split with Jackson. So Darcy could go forward 40% of the time, and we haven't seen that enough to see how well that works. And yeah, just them really throwing the kitchen sink at Luke Jackson just has me worried. So for me, it's over. It's a stay away.
I think he's about right there. My main concern with Sean Darcy is that the likes of Lloyd Meek and those players got a gig last year while he was playing, and his points per game dropped by 16. In 2021, he averaged 118. So if he was to be the clear-cut number one ruckman with Luke Jackson in Perth, playing on the wings on those big grounds, potentially with him playing a kick behind the play, fantastic price. But as Herbie was just saying, if there's a 60-40 split, I can't see Darcy pushing up or pushing down as a forward. His numbers will come in the ruck. So you will get value for money there, but his versatility is what is a concern to me.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I agree. I think I need to dive in a little bit further with him. If we've talked a lot about it in other episodes about how we'll do a point of difference team, he would be my R1 in the point of difference team if I'm looking at the numbers, only because I still think Luke Jackson is a work in progress. I don't see them as giving him too much responsibility. They are in now a premiership window. They are going to play their best 22 in their best positions as often as they can, which I think for their side at the moment has Luke Jackson sitting in that forward line for a fair chunk of time and going in and being that quality pinch hit that they've been waiting for. Lob never wanted to be in the ruck. He hates it. He just wants to be a forward. He thinks he's only a forward. Now they have somebody that'll go in there, do that pinch hit role. But Darcy is I'll be surprised. If they do 60-40, I'll be surprised. I reckon Darcy is still their man 70% of the time when you have that sort of 20 in the forward line, 10 on the bench, whatever that works out to be. But, yeah, watch me make a possible move. I'll speak to my guys at Freo, see what's going down there. But I think Luke Jackson, with everything they got in their forward line at the moment, especially if Cabinar's injured, Luke Jackson will have to be in that forward line a lot more. Yeah, so we'll see how they go.
Good point.
He's a good player. Sean Darcy, I don't think he gets enough credit for how good he is. Yeah. We move on. Adelaide, and again, another one who's a sole ruck, which I'm really big on when it comes to picking my team. I think I've said it a couple of times now. This guy's only at 2%. Riley O'Brien at the Adelaide Crows averaged 101.8. 560, 500. So he's sitting. This is when you start to get a big drop off from these top 5 prices. So this is probably you drop off next by a good nearly 25,000 after this to the next player. So these are kind of really your true primo prices. Riley O'Brien, where's he sitting for you, Mickey Dell?
Yeah, I think he's about right. I've had him in the past, and it's a roller coaster to say the least. He had, I think it was last year, had 17 tackles in one game. As a ruckman, that's huge. You combine that with your tap work, his around the ground work. If he was to do that on a consistent basis, this man could be top 2 super coaches for rucks. Okay, or super coach players, sorry. As you're saying, 101 average last year. The 2 years previous to that, 95 and 106. Is he in a similar position to Tim English, where he's starting to get to that age where he's hitting his prime? He's the definite number 1 ruckman. Does he make that jump by 15, 20 points per game, as we've been saying about other players? So it's a watch this space, but I think he's priced about right for now.
Yeah, I'll agree with you, Mick, there. I think he's priced about right. He is the definition of a roller coaster for sure. I think that he got dropped once or twice last year.
He did.
Went to the Rezzies and scored like 200 Supercoach points in the Rezzies, or 200 plus. The only thing I would say is that if you're a believer in Adelaide, then I'd buy him for sure, because he'll rise with them.
If you're a believer in Adelaide, I want to hear from you, because you need to convince me on what the heck Adelaide's got to offer at the moment. So, I mean, the only thing Adelaide's got to offer at the moment is Gather Round, which is going to be an absolute epic weekend.
That looks huge, doesn't it?
I'm extremely excited. I'm staying at the Adelaide Oval Hotel, which I didn't even know existed. I'm very excited to get amongst that. So, but yeah, he's a really. I actually had a look at his numbers just now. He really is a roller coaster. But I mean, it makes me throw out the question before we move on. It makes me throw the question to you guys: when you are looking at your ruckman for your team, what do you have more confidence in? Is it somebody who's going to regularly be a good hit-out ruckman and get those sort of cheap points? Or is it that, are you looking for that ruckman who goes and gets more disposals? Or I know, and try not sit on the fence here and just tell me it's a nice balance between both. What are you guys looking at when you're picking your ruckman without actually just giving away the name?
Okay, so I'll go first with this one. I like a ruckman that can float back and take those intercept marks. Someone that can help out your back line. You know, a team where you've got someone that can ruck in the forward half. We'll use Melbourne, for example. They've trialled Benny Brown in that position before, albeit not very well. Sam Wiedemann did it when he was there, which allowed Maxi Gawn to float back behind the ball. The opposition kicked the ball out, and who's there? Maxi Gawn. There's 8 points straight away for an intercept mark. So Maxi Gawn, Jared Witts, these sorts of players do it really well. So for me, it's about consistency as well.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. I think the consistency is the biggest thing. And I'll also add one more layer to it. I think it's just going forward and kicking goals, because you see the big boys, obviously the big boys who are doing really, really well, their number one thing is to get back and help. But to go forward and kick goals as well. I just think of Gawn in that prelim final, I think it was, where he kicked 3 or 4 goals against, somebody I can't remember, but he just turned that game around. And then you got Tim English last year who was doing it on a regular basis. It's just a real impact, huge impact from your ruckman to be able to do that.
No, good. I think it's a really good talking point. I think everybody's got to find what it is that they're looking for and understanding sort of where our mindset's at with who we're picking. Guys, I want to move on. I also don't want to crash the mid-price maniacs section as well. So I apologise if I mention a couple of names that might come up. But Mickey Dell, you're normally looking at sort of those people that are under 500,000 when you start talking about your mid-price maniacs.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to throw out a couple of names to you guys and I think the obvious ones to talk about are your Brodie Grundy, who's at 17% and down at 512,000. Your Rowan Marshall, who's at 41% of team selections at 506,000. One I want to put in that mix, or I'll throw Darcy Cameron in there because he's at 33% from Collingwood at 465. So I apologise if he's in your maniacs, but we'll talk about him because he's such a high percentage picked player. But I want to throw one more in there as well. So hopefully you've remembered those three. So Grundy, Marshall, Darcy Cameron. Can someone also tell me why Braden Pruce is at 0% at 506,000 with a new coach? And when he does play, and I think he is their best ruck, he puts up some big numbers. So I'll leave it up to you on who you want to tackle there, guys. Those four names for me and anyone else you think I've missed that are up in that upper echelon. Delly, do you want to start, mate?
I can. I've actually got a couple of notes on Mr. Pruce. He's inconsistent in the way of game time. He plays a few games. He plays some ripper games. He gets hurt. Comes back, plays a couple of games, gets reported, gets suspended. In the Supercoach world, that kills you because what we'll talk about later is when you're looking at a captain option or a captain loophole, your ruck bench is where you normally go to. So you want your two rucks playing every week. So for Pruce, I think there's too much doubts there as to whether he plays every week and whether the new coach, and we'll go into this in later episodes as well, they want to play a run and gun type of style. Is Matt Flynn more suited to that game style?
Love it. Yep. Well, I mean, then I guess I'll go, where's your thought process is that with your Grundys, your Camerons, your Marshalls? Where's your mind there with those last sort of primos or high percentage picked rucks?
I've got Marshall in at the moment. So I'm going to throw some stats out for the last 2 years. So in 2021, when Paddy Ryder played, he averaged 75 points. When he didn't play, he averaged 113. What's that? 20? That's nearly 40 points more as the sole ruckman. In 2022, he averaged 89 when Ryder was in, and then 109 when he didn't play. So that's 20 points difference. When he's the sole ruckman, he is a higher-end Uber premium in Supercoach. I can't see them. If they're going to play another ruck, it's going to be Tom Campbell, and he won't be doing much. Okay, we know the King fella's gone. Is it Ben King at St Kilda? He's gone down. Max King, sorry. My apologies to Ben. You'll get a shout-out later, mate. Tom Campbell, you got there. The Jack Hayes, is it? He's still coming back from an ACL. We've seen in years gone by with Rossi Lyon that he does play the one ruck structure a lot. So, yeah, Marshall for me is that Uber premium. But I will touch on Darcy Cameron here. So Collingwood had a ripper year last year and finished the year strong, as we know. He averaged 84 points in that team, and in the last 5 games of the year, he only averaged 75 points. So you've got that on top of he's already missing pre-season training with hamstring issues. For me, he's a do not touch. I think you'll be disappointed there.
I think you have to. I think your Rowan Marshall comment is exactly why he's at 41% pick selection. I think it's a no-brainer. I think everyone's cotton on to the fact that when Paddy Ryder didn't play, this guy's a legitimate GOAT when it comes to scoring in Supercoach. And at 506,000, that's a no-risk, no-brainer, I think, and that's why everybody's jumping on it. And I wouldn't care if he jumped to 100% of teams picked. He's playing in my round one if he's fit and good to go because you'll get the cash and then you can work it out from there. For me, though, with Cameron, I think you really need to go and look at those lineups in those last few rounds with how he scored. They did that really random, which made no sense to me. Cox all of a sudden became the number one ruck,
right.
and Cameron went and played in the forward line, which made no sense to me because when Cameron went into that, and I think it was in the prelim against Sydney, they did the same thing. And tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm sitting there going, get the guy in the ruck. Do you know what I mean? And I think when they got him in there, they actually had a bit of their resurgence and a bit of a comeback and then pushed it all the way to the end. He is the guy that has to go in the ruck. And I think there's rumours that Cox doesn't make that side this year. So, again, I'll watch out for that because I think your stats are absolutely spot on, but just see where he lines up for that team, especially with that midfield around him. But, really good stats, really good points. We'll go to Herbie for his final thoughts, and then we'll throw to you, Mickey Dell, for the Maniacs.
I haven't got Rowan Marshall in my team at the moment, but listening to that, I might change my mind. I think that Paddy Ryder was out most of last year as well. So he wasn't putting up that big of numbers last year. So for me, it's just to watch this space with him, see how he goes, see how he starts. I'll probably be really, really stupid and pick him up after the first round after he scores 150. But I could be like last year and be really, really stupid like I was last year and not pick up Dunkley for like half the season. So you never know with Clarko's disciples. You never know.
I've got so many heads on how I want to respond to that.
Yeah.
One, we're doing a podcast together, so I've got a response. Two, you're a mate, and three, we're in a league against each other at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'm happy for you to burn that first trade. I mean, we've heard that there's now a lot more trades this year, so it won't be as much of a hurt. But, mate, to everyone listening out there, and this might, we don't have Rowan Marshall in round one, do not come and cry to me in episode round 2 when we start talking about what's going on. I'm that confident. He's probably my most confident player.
So Paddy Ryder played 12 games last year at an average of 64. So he played half the year. I've got one more player before we move on to the mid-price Maniacs, Robbie. Can you have a look at the percentage on Toby Nankervis from Richmond, please?
Ooh. I'm doing it, but just so we don't have a weird silence, keep speaking.
Career average of 96. He's perhaps got the best midfield in the competition as a tap ruckman. He played 22 games last year. Is he food for thought? He does score big.
He's at 1%. He's at 1%.
That's a very good pod there.
What's his price?
What's your thoughts? What's the hesitation? Is it because Soldo might get more minutes this year? Is it what's your thoughts for the hesitation on people? Because he's one that I shy away from, I think, in every competition that I play, even when it's like fantasy draft with mates and all those kind of things. But then when the bloke gets him, and mate, everyone listening along, we love our NBA as well. We do our NBA drafts. He's like the guy that you get in like a 20th round, and then when someone picks him, you go, that's not a bad pick. You've got him in like round 20 as your first ruck, and he actually just puts up solid numbers. But just on the field, he doesn't do that much. It's really weird.
Like, I like him because I've had him the last couple of years as well, and he just gets in those spots and he tackles. His follow-up work from stoppage is really good. I don't think you can go wrong. You won't lose much money out of him, but you won't make much money. So if you're looking for consistency, he's a nice pod.
I think when you look at the price, he's 20K more than Grundy and Marshall. And I think that there's just more upside with those two. For me personally, I think Grundy's going to explode. Yeah. But I can see your Marshall point, boys.
Did you want to talk about Grundy as well, Herbie?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Look, I think that he
opened up about it. So, yeah, what do you think Grundy's going to explode?
Look, I think he's a premium ruck, and I think that he can get back to his best. There's a reason why Melbourne's done what they've done to recruit him, take on that money, the contract as well. I think it's just because of like what I said before, the forward line is just not clicking with the Ds. And then you've got a couple of players, like I said, Ben Brown's really one-dimensional. I think that Max Gawn is going to just go not permanently forward, but you maybe see a 70-30 split where Max Gawn is, 70% of the time in the forward line. And then, look at the midfielders that he's got. Like the midfielders that he's got. He's got Oliver, Batraka. Has he ever worked with a midfield group like that before? I don't think he has.
You know, it's really interesting. Do you know what's really interesting? And I love when sort of real life meets fantasy. So what I mean by that is Brody Grundy, guess who they play in round 1? Western Bulldogs. So when you're now deciding between Tim English at 581,000, or if you hear a fantastic news article leading into round 1 that exactly what Herbie just said, Grundy sort of takes that 70-30 split, you might try and go save yourself, $70,000, which is a good amount for Supercoach, and they go up against each other in round 1. It is nothing worse as a Supercoach picker when you're picking between two players and they actually go against each other in round 1.
Well,
and one sort
Robbie,
of
I won't have that problem, mate.
You got them both, do you?
Yeah.
Well, then we'll give you a call. We'll give you a call during the St Kilda game.
I reckon they'll go for 400 plus.
I love it.
Both of them that game.
I love it. Really
Good.
Really good facts, guys. Really great facts. Appreciate it. And I'm sure our listeners have got a lot to think about, which is great. To throw a few curveballs in the mix, we'll push over to Mickey Dell and we'll give a shout out to a few of our sponsors and supporters.
All right, guys, you sick of playing My Career by yourself, or tired of heading into the rec by yourself and matching up with randoms you don't know? Head on over and give the guys at ANZPL 2K a message in relation to the Australasian 2023 2K League, which has just begun its second season. Get a group of 5 mates together, enter yourselves into the competition to be in with a chance of winning the grand prize, which this season is over $6,000. Players from the league, such as Mr. G Wiz, or better known as Matty G in the 2K community, played his first Pro-Am series tonight after listening to our pod earlier in the week and went 6 for 7 from 3 and won his series. So a shout out to the Sanctuary boys. Well done. Australia is now getting the recognition it deserves online, with players also being drafted into the 2K League. Register your interest today by sending the guys a message at ANZPL2K and they'll help you out from there.
Beautiful. Like we said at the start, I can't give enough of a shout out to sponsors, supporters. I mean, we're totally doing this for the love, for the laughs, and some good times. You know, our unofficial, official sponsor, Bolter, thank you. We're looking forward to getting a few of those Legionnaire hats sent our way. They look phenomenal.
They look good.
Absolutely. But honestly, the love that we're getting from social media and all those types of things, it's fantastic. So we encourage everyone to get along. But thank you to everyone at the ANZPL 2K Leagues. It's unbelievable. We really do appreciate it. So we now move into what I love. I mean, we call you the stat man, and you find the point of difference players for us. We talk about our mid-price maniacs. I actually, as much as I don't want to take credit away from what we're doing here or the love for what we're doing here and early on, I can't wait for this segment when the season's on. Like, I actually think this is where we're going to get the party poppers out. We're working with our producers to get some musical bites that we can play for this. Absolutely. I can't wait for it. So, Mickey Dell, I want to be able to celebrate some mid-price maniacs here, mate. Tell us who you got and why.
Okay. So, first off the cap is Tommy Hickey, 465 from Sydney. I'm mentioning his name tonight because I don't want anyone to pick him. Okay? We were talking about Riley O'Brien being a roller coaster for Adelaide. He has more upside. Tommy Hickey has the ability to hit his 110s, 120s, but is more than likely to get you your 60s or 70s the next week after. If you're looking for consistency, and especially at that price, stay away. I do want to bring one up with you, Robbie, before we go on. Lloyd Meek, 431K. He averaged 87 last year in 6 games with Sean Darcy. With consistent playing time, he could average well over 100. You're a Hawthorn man, let me know.
I'm really intrigued to see what Hawks do with their lineup. We talked about it when the Defenders episode with where's James Sicily actually going to play. And that's about what are they going to do with their forward structure, especially now with Mitch Lewis out for a little while with the ACL strain. I don't think they'll go as simple as just bringing in Jekka, who I don't think really performed quite well when he stepped up to that level. But Lloyd Meek played extremely well for Freo when he played, but he played even better when he went back to the waffle. I mean, they had Sean Darcy, they had Rory Lobb. It didn't fit. He went back and nearly, won the medal here as a ruck in our waffle competition, which is a very strong competition with a lot of AFL players that come out of it. The problem I have is Ned Reeves is the man at the moment. And the way he improved from the year before to last year, I think he's continually showing his upside. So I don't know what Lloyd, and I don't know what Ned or Lloyd offer as a true two-ruck, forward-ruck combination. I don't know where that sits in Mitchell's head. So again, like we made jokes, we don't want anyone to get injured at all in the AFL. But if someone like a Ned Reeves went down, I think Lloyd Meek could grab it by the scruff of his neck and actually show what he could do. So, yeah, it's a really great shout and somebody that should be on people's radar.
So for you, Robbie, just before we move on to Justin, you've been a Hawthorn man. Who's the number one ruck? Is it Meek?
No, I think,
or is it Reeves?
Again, I talk as someone that I'm like in the inner sanctum there. I would be shocked if they're not going with Ned Reeves.
Okay.
I think they've got Lloyd Meek as a quality backup, which will push Ned to hold his position. They had no second ruck for a long time. So with McAvoy going and things like that now, I think he genuinely pushes him. But I would be shocked if they're not starting with Ned Reeves from the improvement that we saw from him last year. I would be shocked. But as you said, there could be a role for both of them. I don't know.
Justin?
It's really interesting what you just said there, Rob, because I wasn't aware of that, to be honest. I thought Lloyd Meek was going to be taking the number one ruck for sure at the Hawks. At this moment, yeah, he's just a watch this space. I don't know enough about him, and I just want to see him play, get the opportunity as the number one ruck. I think, like what you said before, Mick, and I saw a stat that when Darcy was injured the first 7 rounds last year, he was in the team and he did really, really well and scored well as well. So it'll be interesting to see. I think they've brought him over for a reason. He should be the number one ruck. It'll be interesting to see with that young, Hawks brigade. If he gets the time, then obviously he's a let's watch and see.
All right, I've got another one for you. Scott Lycett. Can you check out his percentage, please, Rob, while I throw out some stats?
Yeah, he's right there underneath Lloyd Meek. So yeah. Lloyd Meek's at 5% and Scott Lycett's at 3%. I was nearly going to – do you know what I was nearly going to say? And I don't want to steal your segment here. I was nearly going to say I'd have more confidence in the guy below, but then again, I still want to see what Port Adelaide do with Finlayson. But hit me with the stats, mate.
So, and we've got to watch Sam Hayes this year too. Apparently, he's primed to come in. So, his past 4 years was 101, 97, 94, and then an injury-interrupted 86. At 429K, if you know that he's going to be the first ruck and you pray that he stays of good health, a very good option at 429K. He would be their first choice ruckman, all going well.
Yeah, I rate him highly. I think if you get the confidence that they're going with the combination that they have before, which is Lycett's number one ruck, Finlayson goes and plays in the forward line and just plays that forward ruck role, which I think makes more sense for them. They've got to work out what they're doing with Georgiades and all that type of things as well. They've got Dixon, they've got Georgiades, they've got a lot that just didn't quite work last year for the list that they have. But yeah, for that price, he's if you know he's going to be number one ruck, he's not a bad shout. I think as we go through this podcast, and I'll throw it to Justin or whoever, but I think as we go through this podcast, the big thing everyone needs to remember is, are you going to put your R3 as someone for value, or are you going to use your R3 as your loophole? And I got everyone, there was a lock R3 last year, which made perfect sense for everybody to go with and make cash. But I still got burnt by not having a loophole player in my team. And this year I'm making sure that I've got that loophole player so that you can do the VC captain loophole, which we'll talk further as we get closer to round one. So for me, picking your R1 and your R2, you have to be confident that they're going to be the number one man at their club.
For sure. I've got one more in our mid-price maniacs. Sammy Draper, 398k, Essendon.
He's someone who, yeah.
Yeah, go, Justin.
No, I've just been really wanting to hear from you about Sammy Draper because I picked him last year and he burned me. And I don't know, I think everybody kind of thinks that Essendon's going to be good for the 15th year in a row. They might be good. They probably won't. So I'm interested with your thoughts, Mick.
I'll get a good look next week. So they're coming to Bendigo for a 2-day training seminar, I guess, that they're doing with some of the school kids and running a few sessions up here at the QEO. He is out and out our number one ruck. We've got Nick Bryant there. We've got Peter Wright, who is predominantly forward. The Gold Coast played Peter Wright a little bit in the ruck. He's no doubt our number one key forward at the moment, alongside Harrison Jones and the package, Mr. Stringer. He's still not Supercoach relevant, though. He's still learning the game. For the viewers listening in or watching us on YouTube, that game against Gold Coast last year where he blitzed it, that's his ceiling. The running, kicking the ball off the ground to opponents, he's got that soccer background, the fend-offs. It's exciting to watch, but it's more likely that he's going to score you a 70 or 80 than what it is he's going to get you your 120, 125 a week. So at 398, he's a stay away for now. But as an Essendon supporter, I'd love to see him do well.
I love him as a player. I love the energy. If I'm a supporter, and I think the commentators rave about him and what he gives, I think he extracts every bit of talent that he has, and that's not to sound disrespectful. I think he gets out of himself everything that he's got, and he looks like he has a great time out on the field. I just don't think he gives enough from a stats point of view.
No,
I just think he's that guy that you love to love. But he's not. I don't think he's ever going to be that super coach type caliber.
No. Okay, so now we move on to our rookies or our bargain players that we're going to look at in our ruck department. First of all, I would like to bring up a player by the name, perhaps one of the best names in the AFL, Brendan Tickle. 198k. Played his first game last year. From memory, it was against Richmond. Scored 70 points before dislocating his shoulder. I believe it was in the third quarter. He played one more game for the year where he was a bit standoffish, but has put size on in the pre-season. And if he gets himself right, he was very exciting to watch. And at 198k, you could definitely go wrong in other ways. Have either of you boys heard of Bryn Tickle?
Mate, this is why I love that you're on this podcast, and I've had a lot of love for you over our short time getting to know each other, because I remember the name because it obviously popped up and he played. So people talk about whenever people get there, sort of get a run on the park and things like that. But I think I've just scrolled past him this whole time. But I mean, mate, I'm pumped. What did we talk about when we wanted to talk about actually getting some like different players and things like that? Where, mate, Tickle's going right here now for me. I'm going to watch Tickle and see what he gets up to this year, and I hope he becomes an absolute superstar.
He could be our favourite for the year. We'll celebrate his success and achievements. So if by chance you're listening in, Bryn Tickle, we're all about you here at the Molten Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Mate, I want a signed photo of Bryn Tickle right here, and I mean that with all due respect. Like, yeah, I'm on it, and I'm going to go do some research, and I even love the fact that he's put on size. That's great.
Yeah. Justin, have you heard of Mr. Tickle before?
I haven't heard of Mr. Tickle, unfortunately. I just Googled him then. I did hear about him last year. Him maybe debuted, like you were saying. But, yeah, it was not on my radar. Not on my radar at all. But I think we can get a sponsorship I think that should be in order. A tickle sponsorship.
Absolutely.
I
Now,
feel like someone's going to jump online. Do you know 100%? I'm really big on this. Anytime I do commentary, I do some commentary for the Premier Tennis League competition over here and things like that. Is it definitely tickle or could it be tickle?
it could be tickle, but we're going with tickle.
I want a phone call from this guy. I can't wait. We're going to do our first phone into this
we
podcast.
would love for him to dial in if we get a phone number associated with our podcast, and we'll go from there.
I'm sorry to all our listeners, by the way. We digress a lot. We've just spent a lot of time on this guy, but hopefully everyone's just driving along or in some peak hour traffic right now, and just literally enjoying a little bit of banter with our hopefully expertise comments at the same time.
For the people playing at home and for the people that are looking at a point of difference with your rucks and don't want to spend the extra $200K to get a Sammy Draper or a Scott Lycett, if this guy plays and stays healthy, I'm not pulling your leg. He will be worth it. He looked really good in his first appearance last year. He's just got to stay healthy.
But where is he at in the depth chain?
Well, he played last year. So Scott Lycett went down. He played. If they're looking at a Jeremy Finlayson and him combination, or whether they go the Sam Hayes, I'm not sure what's going on with Sam Hayes at the moment. It's we'll have to see what happens in pre-season games and how the teams line up.
Cool.
All right, so moving on, lads. Esava Redigalia from Geelong. He was a cash cow in 2020, where he was bargain price. Geelong refused to trade him last season, and it's my belief that he could be one of the rucks there at Geelong this year. Stanley's getting older. I don't think they're going to play Blissabs in the ruck on a permanent basis. I think he's too valuable around the ground and as a stopper. And at 174K, that's got cash cow written all over it.
So Esava could be anything. He could be in their back line. He could be their ruckman. He could be a forward. He could be a forward ruck. They could have held on to him just for the fact that he's a fantastic backup for everything that I've said just above. For me, you've got to think about Hawkins being out for the first 5 to 6 weeks, which for me says dollar signs. It says dollar signs, especially at that price. The one name that you didn't mention, and somebody might be able to tell me if I'm wrong, sorry, I should have done better research, is Jonathan Stegler still on their list? Because don't forget that he's somebody that might come into that ruck position if they don't go with a Stanley or a Blickvas at full time. So is he still there?
I think he's retired, isn't he?
I think he has retired.
Did he drop off, did he? Okay. I apologise for that. Yeah, no, well, if that's the case, then I'm comfortable with I've got him. I know we're going to reveal team.
Yeah, I stand to be corrected. He is at 374K.
Yeah, so just be aware that he's somebody that might come into the mould with what they're trying to put together as well. So there's a few options, but I still see dollar signs, and he's actually sitting on my bench in my forward line at the moment, so that I have that possibility of maybe chucking him into the ruck, especially in those first 5 weeks if somebody goes down for a week.
Yeah. Herbie, you got him?
Yeah, he's in my team. Rob pointed that out about a week or so ago to me, that Hawkins is going to be missing the first part of the season. They obviously rate him really high because they didn't let him go. I think that it's like what you said, he can play at any part of the ground, so he's really, really good depth. But yeah, I see him going forward, kicking goals and maybe giving a bit of time in the ruck as well. So just at that price point, I think you just have to pick him. Yeah, even if he gives you 50s or 60s, just make a bit of money off him. And then, yeah, you could potentially upgrade one of your forwards or your rucks.
Yeah. I think people and listeners at home have to be aware with Supercoach, the big difference. If you're making a transition from fantasy to Supercoach and you haven't done it before, when you play fantasy, if someone comes in as a rookie or a debut or plays their first game of the season, their price doesn't change until after their second game. So you can be aware, after their first game. So, yeah, so you've got time to bring them in. You can see what that break even is.
Yeah.
So be aware with this. When you've got someone like a Radigaleo who gets you the cash maybe there's a chance there that you could have watched a couple of guys come in and play their first game of the season, and there's a nice chance to upgrade them watching that break even for that next game. You've always got that really rough guarantee of what that money's going to be. So I've really got him in there. He falls in that Ben King type category for me. If he plays, he's making cash.
Yeah. All right, I've got two more. And I want to hear Justin's comments on this first one. Liam Reddy for Freo. He's a rookie, 102K. He's a mature age recruit out of the Frankston Dolphins. So just down on your front door, mate. They've got comparisons online to Goldstein with the way he goes about it. And he can go forward. He kicked some goals in the VFL last year. At 102K and Fremantle playing a lot of Sunday games later in the year, he could be a potential loophole or could play. Justin, have you got any local knowledge on Mr. Reddy down there?
I do not, unfortunately. I'm just reading up on him now. Unfortunately, I don't have enough information about him to comment.
Have you heard much in the Perth news, Robbie?
No. I mean, I've heard the name being mentioned a few times. There's been quite a few little write-ups. There's that potential factor for sure. So I was talking to a mate. I refer to the same mate who works at Freo, but very involved with the sort of players. He rates him highly. It's just he's not there for a game at the moment, just with the list that they have. But again, he did say if somebody was to go down, he's showing a lot of potential with the club. So they sort of said it's a ready-made body, ready-made age. He's in a good place to sort of jump in and play. So if somebody was to go down, I'd be jumping on it. I don't think he's your player to get right now. We do know that Freo play a lot of Sunday games, so he wouldn't be a bad loophole player to have in your team. Although I'm pretty sure you're going to move to the next guy as one of the highest percentage pick players in the competition for a guy that's probably not going to get on the park because he has that dual position, makes his loophole that little bit better.
Right. And I'll throw it to you for him so you can explain to the viewers who are listening in or watching how the loophole works. But it is Nicholas Madden, 122K. You can pick this player as a ruck and as a forward.
So Nicholas Madden, he's going to be probably the highest owned player in the competition, and I hope he's got a good head on his shoulders that just understands why he's that and doesn't take offence to being considered the greatest loophole player of all time for this season of Supercoach. But what people have looked at, for no one, and I just referred to a little bit there, if you can have your loophole player be someone who, one, is a dual position, two, you're very comfortable that he's not going to get picked unless there's injuries and things like that. And three, plays on a Sunday afternoon. That gives you all the time in the world you can pick a VC who's playing on Thursday, Friday, or even Saturday to change to somebody to be your captain later on. You've got all that time in the world to make that change. I've done a little bit of a look around and everybody's obviously found that same information, which is GWS first 5 of the 6 games they play Sunday afternoon. So that makes this guy right now an absolute lock as that loophole, if that's the type of game style you want to go with. Some people are very big on just I'm going for value from round 1 and make as much cash as I can. Yep. I'm going to play the loophole player this year.
I will be as well. And that's all we've got for the rookie prices or our bargains. I'll throw it back to you, Robbie.
Beautiful. So much information. There's plenty of things for everybody to still to go through. To finish up, what we're just going to reveal is our R1 and our R2. I'm pretty sure, Herbie, have you gone R3 as Madden?
I've gone Radicalier.
Oh, so Radicalier. So that's your point of difference. Radicalier is your R3. So let's go and reveal our R1 and R2. Maybe just give it a quick blurb on why and how confident you are that they will be your R1 and R2 come round 1, obviously barring any injuries. Well, Herbie, you can kick us off, mate. You've told us that Radicalier is your R3. Who's your R1 and your R2?
I got Tim English and Brody Grundy. So yeah, I've talked in this pod quite a lot about Grundy and Melbourne, and how I think that they're going to line up. So I think Grundy is going to be a big beneficiary of that. Great midfielders at his feet. I can see him going up quite a lot. And then obviously English going into his prime. I think he's going to be picked by the majority of players. Yeah, huge year for Tim English. Could easily be the number one ruckman this year.
Yeah, for me, what I will say, I think we got mixed up before. Price changes happen after the third game, for those of you listening in. So you get 2 looks at players, and then if you really want to bring them in, you can bring them in before that third game, and that's where your price increase happens. My rucks, Timmy English, I have made this change since starting the pod. He's too good to look past for me. And Rowan Marshall with Nick Madden on the bench.
Confidence that they'll be there in round 1, barring injuries. You feel pretty confident about that 2 lineup?
I think so. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, for me, sitting in my team, and I said it earlier, so I've got Tim English and Rowan Marshall sitting there at the moment. If the Rowan Marshall for me is an absolute lock, and I said barring injuries, he'll be sitting there for me come round 1. If I do find a way to get a little bit more cash, Jared Witts really does appeal to me, especially with his job security and how much time he spends in the ruck on that team. The other one for me will be having a look at as many reports as possible coming out of Melbourne to see what they will do with that Gawn and Grundy type combination. And Grundy could be a late in, but it does go and defy against everything that I like, which is knowing that person's going to be that true number one ruck and spend time there. So, yeah, that's my lineup, and Tim English will be the one that still watch this space for what actually comes round 1. Gentlemen, fantastic, as always. Love seeing your faces. Love chatting along with you and hearing your voices. Shout out to all our sponsors, our supporters, everybody out there who's listening along. I encourage you to jump on our social pages at Molten Fantasy Sport on Instagram. All our links are in the bio there. You can watch us and listen to us on any podcast and YouTube and all those facilities that are there. And that's us signing off for episode 3. We've got one more to go when it comes to lineups. We've got the big forwards left. I say the goal kickers, but a lot of the time we still find those guys who are just getting those disposals. So on behalf of myself, Mickey Dell, Justin Herbie, thanks everybody, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, gents.